This is the vocabulary PowerPoint for chapters 12 through 14 of Bud Not Buddy. There are 10 terms for these chapters. Make sure as we're going through that you record any new words in your personal dictionary so that you can use those as you practice. Sully is a verb. In the book it says, Lefty Lewis looked at me kind of hard. Well, Bud, I don't mean to sully your reputation, but you just ran away from that man all the way across the state. I think I'd better hand-deliver you. Lefty Lewis said he did not want to sully Bud's reputation. Sully means to damage or ruin the good quality of something. So if you sully someone's reputation, you defile, dishonor, disgrace, tarnish, or damage the reputation. The opposite of sullying someone's reputation would be to enhance, honor, improve, or praise it. So sully is something you do. It is a verb. So we can think about the think before you speak poster. Before you say something about someone else, you want to think about, is it true, helpful, inspiring, necessary, or kind? If it is not, then we don't want to say it because it would sully someone's reputation. An alias is a noun. It is an additional name that a person, such as a criminal, sometimes uses. In the book, it says, I remembered what I read in that little big book, Gangbusters. It said that a good criminal chooses an alias that's kind of close to their own name, except I couldn't figure out who was a criminal here and why anybody needed an alias. So maybe you've seen some of these find your superhero name type things. So for example, my initials are TS, so I would be Silverbot. So that would be my superhero alias. An alias is another word for someone's nickname, their assumed name, or a pseudonym. Pseudo meaning false, so it's not their birth name on the birth certificate, it's a name that they have chosen and adopted. Plug can be a verb, meaning to shoot someone with a gun. So in the book, whenever Bud says he opened his car door and walked back to the police car, I tried to decide what to do. If I made a break for it, I was sure that the coppers would plug me, but maybe Lefty Lewis would wrestle the gun away before they got a good shot off. So that shows you that in this book, when the police pulled him and Lefty Lewis over, Bud was worried about being harmed by the police officer. Scamp is a noun. It is a child who causes trouble, but usually in a playful way. So another word or a synonym for a scamp would be a rascal, hooligan, prankster, scoundrel, or imp. The opposite or antonym of a scamp would be an angel or a sweetheart. In the book, it says, Hermione Calloway said, well, James, like I said, if he's going to be doing some explaining, it's got to be to you. I don't need to listen to this scamp's nonsense while I'm trying to digest my supper. This shows you that Herman E. Calloway, when he first meets Bud, did not think that he was related to Bud, but thought that Bud was actually trying to prank him. So he did not even believe that Bud really thought they were related. He simply thought that Bud was being a little scamp or hooligan or prankster because he was a boy who was causing trouble, but maybe in a playful way. Coot is a noun. It is a word for a strange and usually old man. In the book, it says, sure enough, the drummer, the thug guy, started acting like he was writing stuff down on a piece of pretend paper. He said, let's see, was that mean old Coot or old mean Coot? So he was quoting Bud and giving Bud a hard time. Bud referred to Hermione Calloway as a Coot because he was older than he expected and he thought that his behavior was strange. It was not what he was expecting. So whenever I thought about this, I think about in Harry Potter, how Dumbledore was described as being a very old man, and he did a lot of very strange things. Maybe you just heard Twix barking. Maybe he heard a coot outside. Who knows? Meddling is a verb. It means to become involved in the activities and concerns of other people when your involvement is not wanted. If you have ever watched Scooby-Doo, you have probably heard the word meddling. Normally when they catch the villain will say something like, "And we would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for those meddling kids." So the villains think that the Scooby Gang are interfering, intervening, or intruding in the case. The opposite of meddling, or the antonym of meddling, would be aiding or assisting or helping someone, because then your help is one. In the book, whenever it says, "Steady Eddie said, Doug, you're going to have to lay off the kid's chops. The little man's got problems enough, and he sure don't need to have you meddling with him." So Steady Eddie thinks that the thug is interfering or intervening in what Bud is trying to do. Prying is a verb. It means trying to find out about other people's private lives. The previous word is very similar to this one. Prying is more about talking and finding out information, but they are very similar. Another word or synonym for prying is interfering or intruding. And the opposite or antonym of prying would be aiding, assisting, or helping someone. You're not just trying to find out about their personal lives to be nosy, but you're actually helping them then. In the book, Steady Eddie said, "Man, leave the kid alone. You got no call to go prying into his life." So again, Steady Eddie is sticking up for Bud, saying, leave Bud alone and don't interfere or intrude in what he is doing. Craws is a noun. It is an area in a bird's throat in which food can be kept. So we know that birds will feed their young, and to do that, they have to be able to store food in their throat until they take it back to their young. So that is called a bird's craw. In the book, it says, Doodoo-Bug cut off the car and said, "All right, gentlemen, that's enough. Let's go stuff our craws." So he is using the word craws to mean their mouths stuff their faces, an idiom for going to eat. So he is comparing them to a bird whenever he says they're going to stuff their craws. An acquaintance is a noun. It is someone who is known, but who is not a close friend. So it is someone who you know, but they are not your best friend. An associate, colleague, or friend or neighbor would be another word for an acquaintance. The opposite of having an acquaintance would having someone be a stranger to you, you don't even know them at all, or have them be your enemy, foe, or opponent, because then they are not even friendly toward you. In the book it says, she said, "Oh my, a gentleman. I'm pleased to make your acquaintance as well." So someone is pleased to meet Bud, but they are not best friends. So if you think about a coworker, that might be an acquaintance if you don't know them very well. If you think about people in your life, like maybe a doctor, you've probably seen the same doctor more than once, so you may say that you know them, but they're not going to be your best friend, so you might call them an acquaintance. Scours up is a term used as a verb. In the book, the waitress says, "Man, mercy, Miss Thomas, your guest has some real fine manners. I can tell that he isn't one of those rude, crude folks Mr. Calloway usually scours up." So you can see that she is trying to say that Mr. Calloway usually scours up or finds or conjures up people who are not very kind and respectful. And she is saying that Mr. Calloway has finally scoured up or found someone who is polite. Scours up means to search for something carefully and thoroughly. So she seems to think that Mr. Calloway, Mr. Hermione Calloway, has scoured up or found Bud.